I'm Barbara Stussman. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm going to talk to you about questionnaire development and testing. I've been working in the field of questionnaire development and qualitative research for about 25 years now. I worked for 20 years at the National Center for Health Statistics, which is part of the Centers for Disease Control here in the United States. And there I worked on the National Health Interview Survey, and I also worked in the Questionnaire Design Research Laboratory. For the past 5 years, I've worked here at NIH at the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, where I work on analyzing data from large surveys and performing qualitative research and questionnaire design as well. I'd like to first acknowledge Drs. Willis and Riley. They each gave this presentation in previous years, and I've borrowed somewhat from their talks, so I just wanted to give them a thank you. So here's an outline of what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk about self-report measures, data collection methods. Then I'm going to go through the questionnaire development steps. I'll talk finally about qualitative research, and then at the end about mixed methods research. I'm not going to cover psychometrics, which is sometimes part of this lecture, because I was told that was covered yesterday. So first, let's talk about self-report measures. So there's many sources of data for health research. There's birth and death records. There's medical records that are housed at various offices and hospitals. There's databases that are housed in universities and insurance companies. There's physical data, and there's laboratory data, and there's disease registries. But what we're going to focus on today is self-report measures such as those used in questionnaires. So there's some information that can only be gathered by asking people questions. This is information that's not easily observable. Things such as crimes that are not always reported to the police, or health problems that are not documented in medical records. What people feel, think, and know is often not documented. And so this is the reason for self-report measures. But remember that these are estimates of a true measure. And so as with all estimates, there's always some response error. But we're going to talk about ways to reduce this response error. So what are some of the pitfalls of self-report measures? Well, they're susceptible to the mood that the respondent's in at the time of the interview. So if somebody's not in a very good mood, they're probably not going to give you as good answers. It's susceptible to the motivation of the respondent to give you accurate answers. They're susceptible to the memory of the respondent. So if you're asking them information that they can't remember, they're not going to give good information. And they need to understand the question the way it's worded. It's also susceptible to the context of the interview. So if somebody's about to get rolled in for surgery and you ask them questions about anxiety, you're probably going to get a skewed measure at that point in time. And they're also susceptible to social desirability effects. So this is if you're asking a patient if they're adhering to their medication, they may be inclined to tell you that they are, even if they're not, because they may be worried what you're going to think of them. And this is what we call social desirability. So all of these things can be mitigated by using rigorous research methods. So I'm going to talk about various types of questions. There's open-ended questions which don't have response options. And an example would be, what health conditions do you have? And then there's closed questions which do give response options. An example would be, which of the following conditions do you currently have? Please say yes or no to each. Do you have diabetes? Do you have asthma? Do you have hypertension? Now, the benefit of an open-ended question is that you can capture unanticipated responses. But the downside to open-ended questions is that they're very time-consuming to take that open-ended information and put it into categories, make categories from it. In terms of the response options, there's nominal response options, meaning that they're unordered, such as male and female. And then there's ordinal response options, which are ranked, such as excellent, good, fair, or poor. In terms of the type of information, there's factual information. These are things that are easily, not easily, but objectively verifiable, such as the number of times someone's been to the doctor in the past year, whether or not a person has health insurance. And then there's subjective information. And these are things like knowledge and perceptions, feelings and judgment, such as if you ask someone, if you lose your job, would you be worried about losing your health insurance? That's an example of subjective. So let's talk about the various data collection methods. Well, there's computerized surveys and paper surveys. Computerized surveys can be done on a desktop, laptop, internet, smartphone, tablet. And then some surveys are administered by interviewers and some are self-administered. And if a survey is administered by an interviewer, it can be done face-to-face or it can be done from a centralized location over the telephone. And occasionally surveys use an interactive voice response, which is when a computer voice will ask questions and then take the responses and convert them into textual data. I'm not going to talk much about that. It's not very common. Before I go into the pros and cons of the different data collection methods, I just wanted to explain to you what a skip pattern is and the use of visual aids. So this is a very simplistic skip pattern. The first question, have you ever had asthma? If the respondent says no, you stop. If they say yes, you get a follow-up. Have you had an asthma attack in the past 12 months? If you say no, you end. If you say yes, you get another follow-up. How many times have you gone to the emergency room because of asthma? This is a very simplistic example, but I just want you to understand what I mean when I use the term skip pattern. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about why visual aids can be helpful. This picture was given to respondents, and they were asked to say where the abdomen is. So they were asked to give the number of where the abdomen is. And the results were that it was all over the board. There was no understanding at all of where the abdomen is. And so when they fielded the survey, they actually showed a picture like this. And so they could focus the respondent on the area that they were talking about when they said abdomen. So it's an example of how a visual aid can be helpful and collect more accurate data. So what are the pros and cons of the various data collection methods? Well, computerized surveys, the pros are that you get the data quickly because it's all stored on the computer. Computers can handle very complex skip patterns. There could be hundreds or even thousands of various pathways. Computers can help to eliminate skip errors, so a respondent won't accidentally forget to answer a question, but also this is contingent upon the computer being programmed accurately. So computers can also make mistakes if they're not programmed correctly. And with computers, you can tailor the questions to the severity of the patient's symptoms. So a patient with a more severe form of a disease can be asked questions appropriate to that patient. Someone with a milder form can be asked questions appropriate to that patient. So it really saves time and it's more efficient. The negative of computer surveys is that the data gets lost if the system crashes, if it's not backed up. Also, they require a power source. If you're somewhere interviewing someone and your battery dies, you're kind of stuck. So what about in-person interviewer-administered surveys? Well, on the plus side, the interviewer's there. She can answer questions for the respondent if they're having some confusion. She can probe for appropriate answers if the respondent's not quite sure what you're looking for. With an in-person interview, you can administer to illiterate or people with low reading levels. You can reach people who can't come to you, so people with mobility issues, you can go to them. You can build rapport with the respondent over the course of the interview. Interviewer-administered in-person surveys tend to have very high response rates relative to other methods, and you can use visual aids. On the negative side, they're very expensive. To travel to people, to go to them is very expensive. There's geographic limitations because there's only so far and so much travel you can do usually or that can afford. They tend to have longer data collection periods because of all the travel. And some studies have shown that the presence of the interviewer herself can bias the results of the interview. So sometimes, especially with sensitive items, having an interviewer there can sometimes make a respondent less honest with their answers. And with interviewers in person, there's always a chance that they're using different methods or they're not reading the question as worded. There's nobody there observing them usually, and so you're subject to the individual differences of the interviewers. So what about telephone interviewer-administered surveys? Well, they have lower costs because there's no travel involved. It's much easier this way to ensure uniform data collection. You can monitor the interviewers and make sure that they're all reading the questions as worded, so there's not as much variation. They tend to have shorter data collection periods because you don't have the travel involved. And also you can have good geographic coverage because it's much easier to phone someone than it is to travel to them. On the negative side, here in the US, 2% of households don't have telephones, so you're missing those people. Also here in the US, 4 in 10 US adults are cell phone only, which makes doing sampling for telephone surveys very complicated because you have to take a combination of landlines and cell phones. It can be very complex. Over the telephone, you can't use a visual aid, and also telephone surveys tend to have lower response rates than in-person surveys. So what about internet or tablet surveys? They tend to have lower costs. The data is timely because it's right there stored on the computer, so you can get the data fairly quickly. They're good for questions that are sensitive. They provide good anonymity. They can be flexible in their design. You can use visual aids. You can have long lists of response options. They can have complicated skip patterns because of the computer aspect. And they tend to be very convenient for respondents. Respondents like being able to complete the survey anywhere, any location, whenever it's convenient for them. And it's easy to cover large geographic areas because there's no travel really involved. On the negative side, people have varying degrees of computer skills, access, and connection speeds. You're not sure that everybody's seeing the same thing on their computer. People's computers are configured differently, so there may be differences in the designs. And when you do your sample based on an online group, it tends to be a biased sample that reflects that particular online group that you're sampling from, which is not always reflective of the general population. It also can be difficult to verify informed consent over the computer surveys, and also it's difficult to track non-responders. So what about paper and pen surveys? The pros of those are that they provide good anonymity for sensitive questions. There's no one present, and people can just answer it privately. They can handle long, complex response categories. You can use visual aids. You can put a visual aid on a paper survey. You can assure that the appearance is consistent across surveys because all the surveys are printed and they all look the same. You don't have the issue with computers where people can configure their screens differently. It's pretty easy to cover a large geographic area. It's not too expensive to mail surveys to different places. And the length is easy to see. As soon as the respondent starts the survey, they know how long it's going to be, which could be a plus or minus. If you have a very long survey, it could be a minus. On the negative side, they require good reading and writing skills. Also, you can't use complex skip patterns because with paper, you can't say go here, then here, then here. It has to really be straightforward or respondents will get confused. There's no quality control this way. Someone could start at the last question and work their way forward. You really have no way to control that. And you would think it would save money by doing paper and pencil surveys, but not always, because then you have to enter the data into a computer into a software program to do the statistical analysis. And sometimes that ends up costing you just as much as if you had just done it on a computer to begin with. So I want to mention the different effects of these data collection methods on response. We know that multiple methods will increase response rates, especially if you use a different method for follow-up. So for example, if you do an in-person survey and then you follow up with non-responders over the telephone, you can really get high response rates that way. But you need to be aware that there are differences when you use different methods. Spoken questions tend to produce more positive responses. So with the question, how would you describe your health? Would you say excellent, good, fair, or poor? You tend to get more excellent responses with spoken questions. So you just need to be aware. Also, with the different methods, people tend to tailor their questions to the method. So yes, no questions are very popular over the telephone. Long lists of checkboxes are very popular over the internet. People tend to use long scales for self-administered surveys, shorter scales for telephone because people can't really remember a lot in their head. A scale would be like agree, neither agree nor disagree, or disagree, that kind of thing. And over the telephone, you really can't have a lot of those. People can't remember them. And there's a vast array of visual and graphics available for computerized surveys. So the main point I want to make here is when you're combining across methods or comparing across methods, you need to be careful because differences you find might not be actual differences, but they might be just a facet of the method that you're using. So now I'm going to go through the main questionnaire development steps. There's many versions of this. Many people have their own questionnaire development steps. These are based on my experience developing questionnaires. The main point is that you need to be systematic. You don't just want to start writing questions. Although these steps are listed sequentially here, they're really more iterative in nature. So the first step is to determine your analytic objectives. So what are the general concepts that you want to cover? What are your research questions? What are your hypotheses? And the way to figure these out is to do an extensive literature review. You can convene expert panels and think tanks. This is when you get experts from all over the world or the country together in a room. You go through the state of the science, and you talk about what's missing, what's needed, what's important right now. This can be a day-long meeting, a week-long meeting, really depends on how extensive the topic is that you're interested in. And then I want to mention, just don't forget to get the patient's input. It's really important to have the perspective of the patient when you're determining your analytic objectives. I also find that creating table shells can be really helpful when you're creating your analytic objectives. So this is an example of just a very simple table shell. The first column, the number of respondents who used yoga in the past 12 months, broken out by men and women. Then the next column is a subset of those. It's the percent who took a yoga class in the past 12 months. And then the final column is the percent of those who had insurance coverage for their yoga class. So just by creating these simple table shells, it can really help you finalize your objectives. And when you see how the data looks, it can really be helpful. So then the next step is to put together your draft questionnaire. So I want to encourage you to use existing questionnaires when you can. If there is a question out there that's been tested and validated and it's on an established survey, I highly recommend that you use that versus writing your own question. And I've put some examples here for you. There's some national field surveys out there, ones that I'm familiar with, the National Health Interview Survey, which is a cross-sectional household survey conducted by the National Center for Health Statistics here in the U.S. There's also the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, also put out by the National Center for Health Statistics. That's a longitudinal survey, and it also includes physical measures. There's the National Health Service Survey put out in the UK. There's Research Electronic Data Capture, or REDCap, which is a shared library of data collection instruments. All those instruments are reviewed for relevance, accuracy, and copyright. I also want to put in a plug for healthmeasures.net. This is a website that houses 4 measurement systems, all sponsored by NIH and all developed with the best practices from around the world. I should mention that the website itself is under construction, so it's going to get better. It's a little bit new right now. But the measurement systems are all very well validated, and they've been around for a while. One is the Patient-Reported Outcome Measurement Information System, or PROMIS. These include self-reported measures of global, emotional, physical, and social health. There's the Quality of Life in Neurological Disorders, or NeuroQual, which are self-report measures for persons with neurological conditions. There's the Adult Sickle Cell Quality of Life Measurement Information System, or ASCME. Those include measures for persons with sickle cell disease. And then there's the NIH Toolbox, which are examiner-administered measures to assess cognitive, sensory, motor, and emotional functioning. When you're putting together your draft questionnaire, you should also pay attention to aesthetics. Don't overcrowd the page or overcrowd the screen. Make sure it looks nice, there's enough open space. You want it to look appealing and not be too overwhelming. Also, you should draft questions using known criteria, and I'm going to go through those. So what are some of the criteria that we know create good questions? Well, for general population surveys here in the U.S., we strive for a literacy under 9th grade. For other surveys, if you know the education level or the literacy level of your target population, then you should design the questions for that level. But in general, it's better to go lower than higher. We know that specific questions work better than broad questions. Questions should be culturally sensitive, and I'll be giving you examples of these soon. You want your scales to be consistent, so you don't want to switch your scales throughout the questionnaire. You want to keep them consistent so respondents don't get confused. Your terms need to be well defined. Your instructions need to be clear. Reference periods need to be clear so that the respondent knows whether you're talking about the past 24 hours, the past week, 2 weeks, month, whatever it is, it needs to be clear. Your response options need to match your question. You don't want to ask a yes-no question and then have some other type of response categories. And multiple concepts should be separated into individual items so that they're not too complex. We also want to make sure that questions are interpreted accurately by people with a range of demographic characteristics and that they're capturing what the researcher intends them to capture. And I'm going to talk about how to do this in a minute. Also, there are things you want to avoid. As I mentioned before, you want to avoid social desirability effects. You should avoid using negative wording. People in general do not do a good job of telling you why they don't do things. It's not a good idea to ask those types of questions. You want to avoid double-barreled questions, meaning that you're asking 2 questions in one. Avoid questions that use jargon, which is words that are only understood by persons of a particular group. Avoid ambiguous questions and questions that lead the respondent to a particular answer. So now I'm going to talk about cognitive testing. And cognitive testing is a really great way to make sure that your questions meet all these criteria. So what is cognitive testing? Well, it's a technique to study the way in which respondents understand, process, and respond to survey questions. A trained researcher will read questions to a respondent and then use probing techniques to determine how the respondent is interpreting the questions and if this interpretation matches the researcher's intentions. With cognitive testing, all components of the question is tested. You can test the main stem of the question, the response categories, the instructions, the ordering, all aspects can be tested. You use qualitative analysis to find common themes. So you're not going to make a change to a question based on one interview, but you want to look for themes across several interviews. The interviews are generally performed in a laboratory by a trained research team. Although sometimes it's beneficial to travel to a respondent if it's someone who has trouble getting to you for whatever reason. You want your participants to be based on the target population. Generally, you keep the interviews to no more than an hour because otherwise people will start losing focus, as I'm sure you've probably learned throughout some of these lectures. Usually the respondents are paid for their time. So it's an iterative process where you'll test the questionnaire with respondents, you'll make modifications, and then you'll retest the questionnaire. And several rounds of this take place, and this could take place over the course of several months. So it's a very iterative process. The research team will meet in between interviews and discuss the findings and then make changes for the next set of interviews. And the goal is to find and fix sources of response error. So what are some of the sources of response error? Well, response error can occur if the respondent doesn't know the information that you're asking, if they can't recall it, even if they do know it, if they don't understand the question the way it's worded, or if they don't want to give an honest answer in the context of the interview. And after you do cognitive testing, you have several choices of what to do with that information. You can decide to accept the original question as it is. Maybe it works just fine. You can decide to accept the question but make some minor edits to the question. You can decide to accept the question and make major edits to the question, or sometimes it's just a flop, it's not going to work, you're going to get bad data, and it's better to just drop the question and start over again. So now I'm going to go through several examples of how questions have changed as a result of cognitive testing. These are all real examples from work that I've done. So here, this is an example of a question that was too broad. The original question, would you be more inclined to use complementary therapies if your medical doctor or other conventional healthcare provider recommends it? Well, we found through cognitive testing that people had trouble answering for complementary therapies as a whole. They'd want to say one thing for acupuncture, another thing for massage, etc. So in the final version, we asked, during the past 12 months, did you use the therapy? And we would insert the specific therapy, such as chiropractic or acupuncture, because it was recommended by a medical doctor. So this way, respondents could answer individually for individual therapies. Here's an example of a question that was too complex. During the past 30 days, did you use any of the following vitamins and minerals for your own health or treatment? Be sure to include all vitamins that you use. If you take a single vitamin or mineral supplement, such as niacin, that is not part of a combination multivitamin mineral supplement, include it separately. Well, by the time you get halfway through this, the respondent's already forgotten what you're trying to ask. It's way too long and wordy. So in the final version, we asked, the next questions are about any vitamins and minerals you may take. Have you ever taken any vitamins or minerals listed on this card? So by using a card, it reduced the chance that a respondent would include something that was out of scope for the survey. And we also shortened the instruction about how to include a vitamin or mineral. And this question worked much better. Here's an example of a question that was double-barreled. What was the reason you chose to use acupuncture? Was it to treat a specific health problem or just to stay healthy or well? Well, we found out that people use acupuncture for both reasons or for neither reason. Or so that they didn't necessarily want to pick one or the other. So in the final version, we asked, did you use acupuncture for any of these reasons? Please say yes or no to each. For general wellness or general disease prevention. For one or more specific health problems, symptoms, or conditions. So this way they could answer yes to both, no to both, or yes to one and no to one. Here's examples of some questions that we ended up dropping. The first one, do you currently see a practitioner for homeopathy more or less or about the same as you did 1 year ago? Well, we found that a lot of people who use homeopathy do it on an as-needed basis or do it sporadically, and it was almost impossible for them to answer answer this question accurately. The next question, at what age did you first start using the complementary therapy? For heavy users of complementary therapies that had been using them for many, many years, it was very, very difficult for them to remember the age that they had started using. And then the final question, during the past 12 months, did your child pray for his or her own health? This question was asked of parents about their children, and we found through cognitive testing that most parents really didn't know if their children were praying, much less what they were praying about. So the point here is that rather than ask questions that you know people are guessing, they don't know the answer, you don't want bad data. So it's better to just not ask the question. You can't force an answer to, even if you want to know this information, if people don't know the answer, don't ask it. You're just going to get bad data. Here's an example of a question where the term wasn't defined. During the past 12 months, did you use movement therapies for your own health or treatment? Well, we found that people really didn't know what we meant by the term movement therapies. To us who work in the field, sometimes these terms seem like they are just everyday terms that people know because we're so used to them. But then you get into the real world and to the general population, and people are not nearly as familiar with terms as you may think that they are. People thought this would include things like physical therapy. So in the final version, we asked, have you ever practiced any of the following movement or exercise techniques? And we listed what we were talking about. Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, Pilates, or Traeger psychophysical integration. So, and we also provided definitions for all of these. As you can see, all of my examples are from complementary health approaches because that's where I work. So, okay, this is an example of questions, how cultural salience is important for questions. This first question, have you ever switched from a stronger to a lighter cigarette? This was found to work very well here in the US, but when it was tested in China, at the time, this was several years ago, the tar content wasn't listed on the cigarettes. So you need to be aware of how cultural differences can make your question, difficult for people to answer. The second question, during the past 12 months, did you see a practitioner for or use the therapy because it was how you were raised, was the original version? Well, after cognitive testing, we changed it to during the past 12 months, did you see a practitioner for or use the therapy because it was part of your upbringing? And this may seem like a subtle difference, but we found through cognitive testing that how you were raised implied a more deliberate action than merely being exposed, whereas it was part of your upbringing better captured unintentional or cultural exposure, which is what was the intention of the question. Now I'm going to talk about an example where inconsistent response categories can cause problems. This is a real example from the National Health Interview Survey. They noticed a 10-fold increase in children reported to have cerebral palsy in years 2004 through 2006. In those years, they had between 311 to 353 cases reported versus only 34 cases in 2003. Now, these are unweighted data, so this isn't the number of cases in the country. This was before it was weighted. But in any case, they found that this increase was not a real increase, but it was caused by interviewer error, and I'll explain that. So this was the new screen design. And they had it like this. Looking at this list, has a doctor or other health professional ever told you that your child had any of these health conditions? Well, and if they had none, they were meant to say 0, 0. Well, in every other question in the survey, 1 means yes and 2 means no. So a lot of interviewers put 2 here, which in this question meant cerebral palsy. So this is a really good example of why you need to make sure your response options are consistent. In the old screen design, before they changed it, it was check boxes, and so this wasn't an issue. So they fixed the problem by actually adding a screener question before this, asking if the child had any health conditions, yes or no, and then they only got to this question if they had said yes to that. And now the numbers have come back to what they were before this change in the design. This is an example of how ordering can affect responses. The original ordering was, have you ever had a sigmoidoscopy, and when was your most recent? And then, have you ever had a colonoscopy, and when was your most recent? In the final version, we reversed the order because we found that a lot of people had trouble distinguishing between these 2 tests, even when they were given a definition. And colonoscopy is the more common test here in the US. So what would happen is people would say yes to sigmoidoscopy, then they would get to colonoscopy and realize, oh, no, it was a colonoscopy that I had, so the interviewer would have to go back and change the answer. It cost survey time. So by putting the more common exam first, it actually was a more efficient way, a better way to design this. So I also want to caution you to pay attention to the length of your survey. Ideally, for a face-to-face survey, you want it to be under 30 minutes, and for a telephone or a web survey, under 15 minutes. Now, having said that, I know that many of the surveys that I've worked on have gone over this. Many surveys do go over this. It's the real world. But just so that you know, when the length of the survey gets longer, it will increase your costs and decrease your response rates. And we've found that interviewers tend to rush when they have a long survey and the respondent's getting impatient. Respondents get tired, they get impatient. And we've even found, through some of the work that we've done, that some interviewers will actually cheat when they have a very long interview, so that by the time it gets to the end of the interview, they're hitting don't know, all the way through. You can tell this by looking at the keystroke data. So there are consequences when you try to make your surveys too long. So now let's talk about field pretesting. So field pretesting is when you administer your survey in a realistic setting to a similar study population. It's like a dry run. So it's not the actual survey, but you're doing it in a very realistic setting. It's a dry run of your survey. And for interviewer-administered surveys, you use actual interviewers, experienced interviewers, to make it as realistic as possible. You use the instrument in as near final of a version as you can. Oftentimes, the designers or the sponsors of the survey will observe. Then usually they have rating forms where they can jot down any problems that they notice that happened during the field test. The interviewers will write down anything that they notice, and the designers and the sponsors will write down anything that they notice. And then often a debriefing is held where everybody gets together in a room and you project the questionnaire onto a screen, go through item by item, and discuss each question and any issues that arose. And you can really catch things this way that you might not catch in a laboratory. So it is an important step. It's more difficult, but you can also do field pretesting for self-administered surveys. You can interview respondents after they complete a self-administered survey and ask them about any issues that came up. And sometimes it can be helpful to even observe a respondent filling out a self-administered survey. You can see if they hesitate or if there's points that they take a long time to fill out a certain question. So it can still be useful. It's also useful to use the quantitative data from field pretesting. You can use the data you can use open-ended questions and then use that data to decide what closed categories. If you're not really sure what closed categories you want, that could be helpful. Sometimes you can use the data from a field pretest to decide to collapse categories or eliminate response categories if In the field test, only certain response categories are being used. You can decide to alter your skip patterns. There may be one particular pathway that nobody really went down. It didn't seem like anyone was getting to that pathway, so maybe you don't need to ask it in the real world. And you can decide that you can drop items if they just seem to really be problematic or not being asked. Sometimes you do get different issues in the field than you do in the laboratory. So although the cognitive interviewing is really useful, you're not always going to catch the same things that you will in an actual field test. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about translation. I'm using PROMIS as an example for translation because they have a very detailed, extensive translation process, so I think they're a really great example to use. PROMIS assures harmonization, meaning that although different words are used and different languages are used, they convey the same meaning. They also use a universal approach, meaning that there's one language version for multiple countries. So even if there's several countries that speak the same language, they don't develop a separate version for each of those countries. They have people involved in the process that are from various countries and dialects to make sure that the version works across all of the different countries and dialects. This is the step-by-step process that PROMIS uses. It's very detailed. They begin with 2 English to target language translations. Then they have a native speaker of the target language reconcile those 2 translations. It's then back translated by a native English speaker. It's then reviewed by the project manager. Then they have 3 native target language experts. These could be linguists or healthcare professionals who review the translation. Again, it's reviewed by the project manager. Then they have a native target language speaker review the history of all the items and all the different versions of translation that it's been through to determine the final version. It's then reviewed again by the project manager. It then goes to formatting, typesetting, and proofreading. And then after all of that, they do cognitive testing with native target language speakers. And finally, they compile the comments and finalize the version. So it's a very extensive translation process, and it does produce high-quality translations. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about qualitative research. So qualitative research is the systematic collection, organization, and interpretation of textual material derived from talk or observation. I think one way to explain qualitative research is to contrast it with quantitative research. So with quantitative research, you begin with a hypothesis. You have very specific research questions, such as, does yoga improve back pain? And then you collect all your data, and then you do your data analysis. With qualitative research, you often use the qualitative research to generate hypotheses. You often use very general research questions, such as, why do people use complementary health approaches? And the analysis is an iterative process with the data collection. So you'll collect data and do your analysis at the same time, and then modify your data collection procedures based on your analysis. So it's very different than quantitative. Sources for qualitative data collection can include interviews, observations, videos, diaries, memoirs, biographies, as well as other things. I'm going to focus on interviews. That's what I think are most pertinent. So in order to do interviews, it requires sensitivity. You need to be able to pick up on nonverbal cues. Oftentimes people won't always say things, but you can tell by body language. So you need to be sensitive to that. It's helpful if you're familiar with the latest literature. It can really enhance your sensitivity. And you have to take the context into account. Who else is present at the time of the interview? Where is the interview taking place? What were they doing right before the interview? All of these things are important. With qualitative research, usually the interviews are audio taped and then they're transcribed later so that you can import them into a qualitative data analysis software package to analyze. An interview protocol is generally used, which you can include important information about the date, time, and location. Also, the interview protocol includes broad questions to ask during the interview. So additional questions are asked spontaneously. It's not all scripted, but you have general broad questions that you know that everyone who does the interview is going to ask. The data analysis for qualitative research begins with the very first piece of data. By piece of data, I mean a word, a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph, whatever it takes to convey a concept. Then you do what's called coding, which is assigning themes to the data. Each piece of data is compared for similarities and differences. Conceptually, similar segments are grouped together to form categories. And these categories then form your basis of analysis. So the coding scheme evolves and becomes more complex as you go along. Each piece of data is compared until no new piece of data will challenge the categorical structure that you've developed. And this is what we call saturation. So you have this categorical structure. When you get to the point where every time you're analyzing the data, there's no new category that emerges, that's what we call saturation in qualitative research. It's both an art and a science. It's an art because you need to creatively construct a story from the data. But it's a science too because you need to validate the data as the research goes along. With qualitative research, more than one story can be derived from the data. So if you ask the question, why do people use complementary health approaches, you could focus on physical reasons, you could focus on psychological reasons. There's not just one story that you can tell. And these are some qualitative data analysis software packages that are common, that are out there that people use. Okay, so the final topic I'm going to cover this afternoon is mixed methods research. So mixed methods research is the integration or combining of qualitative and quantitative methods to draw on the strengths of each. There's many reasons for doing mixed methods research. You can view problems from multiple perspectives. It provides contextualized information so you can see it from multiple areas, and you can develop a more complete understanding by using these two different methods. It gives you a broader understanding of the research problem. There are challenges to doing mixed methods. It requires a lot of teamwork, resources. Oftentimes you need a large sample size, and it requires a lot of interpretation. There's many mixed method designs. Many are very complex. I'm going to go over just three very simple ones. The first is you do the qualitative first and then the quantitative. In this design, the qualitative research is used to develop outcome measures or interventions. This is the design that's most pertinent to questionnaire development. So the qualitative data is used to ensure that the instrument is grounded in the views of the participants. This is usually done through focus groups or cognitive interviews. You want to make sure that your questions are capturing what you think they're capturing. Just because you ask something, that doesn't mean it's interpreted the way you think it's interpreted. I'm again going to use the patient-reported outcome measurement information system as an example. Their development process starts with expert review so that they can review the state of the science. They then do focus groups with patients to get the patient perspective. They then develop questions, and then they do cognitive testing. Then they administer the survey, and then they finally do psychometrics. This is a very simplistic version of what they do, and it's more iterative than the way it's listed here, but it's a good example of doing the qualitative and then the quantitative. The second design is doing quantitative first and then qualitative. In this design, the qualitative is used to help explain the quantitative data. An example that I have here is our study that looked at, do positive views on aging influence health? So they first used questionnaires to determine if there are associations between positive views and health. Then they used qualitative interviews. After they determined that there were associations, then they used qualitative interviews to really find out the nitty-gritty, the specifics. What are the barriers and resources that impact health behaviors? So then the final design is qualitative and quantitative used concurrently. So in this design, both methods are used at the same time to answer the same research question. An example is a study that sought to better understand the cause of distracted driving by commercial truck drivers. They used qualitative interviews to identify how supervisors might be distracting the drivers. And then they also used surveys, quantitative surveys, that focused on the decision-making by drivers that were in near crashes. So they did both of these at the same time. Then they took the data from both of these components and synthesized them to develop interventions. So it's an example of doing both methods concurrently. I have another example of mixed methods research from here in the clinical center. It's a study that I was involved with. It ended this past summer. It was a brain imaging study with fibromyalgia patients and healthy volunteers. Subjects were given experimental heat on their leg using a thermode, and then they were asked to rate their level of pain, and they were also getting brain scans while they were in an MRI machine. We added a qualitative component to learn how patients determine their pain ratings and how, what they're thinking about and how they come up with their pain scores. And we also looked for differences between fibromyalgia and healthy volunteers. This is an ongoing project, so we haven't finished our data analysis yet. But what I wanted to point out is that some of the qualitative data were actually helpful to explain some of the quantitative data. There were some peculiarities in the quantitative data, and we were able to find subjects that told us during the interview that they were confused or didn't follow the directions quite as they were intended. We were also able to identify subjects who told us that they were starting to nod off in the MRI machine, and also subjects who had mentioned that they had other pain other than fibromyalgia. And these kind of helped explain some of the nuances in the quantitative data that didn't really make sense. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I want to leave you with just a few final thoughts. A main point that I hope that you've at least gotten these main points, that questionnaire development requires careful planning. So don't just write questions. Use a systematic method to design your questionnaires. Whenever possible, use existing questionnaires that have already been validated and they've already gone through the trouble of making sure they're good questions. So you don't have to write your own questions unless there is no existing questionnaire that meets your needs. And the better your methods are when you design your questionnaire, the better your data is going to be. And you don't want to spend a lot of time and effort putting into designing questions and not have good data on the other end. So I highly encourage you to use rigorous research methods when you design questionnaires. And that's all. I've got some suggested resources at the end of the slide for you. And I was told that the best way to handle questions is the discussion board. I don't mind answering questions, but I'm told that it's difficult for people on the, remote sites to hear the questions here. So I guess if you want to come talk to me, that's fine. But otherwise, I would suggest you put your questions on the discussion board. Thank you.